My most recent book with Scholastic is Unlocking Complex Text, and it is a very important topic that teachers are wrestling with today. One of the first components of unlocking complex text is to make sure you give a child a text he can learn from. We don't give a grade level complex text to a student reading 3 or 4 years below grade level because they can't read it. No matter how many times you ask them to go back into it, it's not going to work. So what we do is we teach grade level skills, but we meet the child where the child is. One of the most important ways to help kids unlock complex text is the teacher using what I call an anchor text. An anchor text is a short text. It can be a picture book, it can be an excerpt from a long text, a short story, or a legend. It's the same genre as the genre that the unit is, that the students are working through. And each day the teacher spends 10 to a maximum of 15 minutes thinking aloud and modeling how the teacher applies that strategy to the text. This is really important because what we want students to develop is a mental model of how you apply a strategy and how you make meaning using that strategy. Most students don't come into class with that mental model. They have to be shown by the teacher. So it's a very powerful piece of instruction. And you can model all kinds of reading strategies. You can model literary elements, text structure, text features. We can show students how all of these work and kind of give them a great menu of strategies that they can choose as they're working with complex text. But another component is very important. In addition to instruction and students doing guided practice with a complex text, we need to have a rich, independent reading curriculum. Without independent reading of self-selected books, children will not make progress. So you ask me why? Okay. Because independent reading is like practicing football and baseball and basketball. We wouldn't throw kids out in competition unless they practice what they're learning in class. And the practice in a sport gives you skill, motivation, it develops stamina, the ability to stick with it, and then you learn certain moves to be successful in that sport. It's the same with reading. When you practice reading, you're developing your eyes. They have muscles. Your brain is a muscle. And you're also building your vocabulary, building background knowledge. But the key is choice. Because with choice, the students develop a sense of what they like and don't like. So they develop literary taste, and we can't teach that. That comes from trial and error and practice. With independent reading, kids make the reading social. They talk to one another. But one of my favorite things to do with the independent reading component is to have students develop their own independent reading curriculum. And this can happen in grades 2 on up. And when I come into a class, and I did this last year, the principal invited me into a 6th grade class and said that the kids had no independent reading at all. And she was very troubled because up until 6th grade, there was a very rich independent reading curriculum. So I decided that I was going to let these students negotiate their own curriculum. And they took it to places I had never dreamed of. They made lists of authors, topics, genres that they wanted to read, and we gave it to the librarian. And she had some extra budget money, so she got some of their favorites that they could check out. And then they set goals for themselves. I told them that 40 books a year would really make a difference, but they also pointed out to me that I had come into their class in December, as only kids will do. So I said, well, negotiate what you want to read. So most of them negotiated for the first month anywhere from 2 to 4 books. And then it just began to boomerang geometrically. So by May, those kids had read anywhere from 30 to 80 books beyond their instructional text. And of course you can't monitor all those books, nor should you. Nobody monitors books I read, but I do a lot of talking. So with the kids I developed a book conference forum so they can confer with each other and document it. They also said they wanted to do performance, so I taught them how to write readers' theater scripts and dramatic monologues. They did TV shows where they did panel discussions about an author, and it was one of the most exciting experiences I ever had. And the kids said that the reason they loved it was because I trusted them, and I gave them the power to choose and develop a curriculum. The funny thing that they did, though, was when we were talking about, what they could do, they said, maybe we should do 2 journal entries, Mrs. Robb, because we think teachers like that. And I just kind of cracked up with that, but they did do 2 journal entries. And I think the point I'm wanting to make is that over the years, I've taught more than 40 years, and the more I teach, the more I realize that we need to teach for independence, for students to be able to do things on their own and develop as readers and writers on their own and self-evaluate where they are. So independent reading is a great place to start for the teacher to trust the children and then step out of the way of controlling the class and be an observer. Negotiate when you see the need to, or when students ask you questions, and really just come out and say, I need help, or this is not working for the group. It's one of the most satisfying ways to teach because you see enormous growth in children. And I think that's what we're here for. We're here to build that self-confidence, to let them know that they have the power within themselves to become the best reader possible, the best writer possible. We have to just give them the opportunities. So together with powerful instruction, with the teacher reading aloud just for fun and joy, and with students practicing independent reading, I think we can go back and create a nation of readers.